Emily smiled as she took a slow sip of her coffee, the rich aroma filling the quiet kitchen. The morning light streamed through the windows, casting a warm glow over the neatly arranged breakfast table. Everything felt ordinary, routine, just another peaceful start to the day. She glanced at her husband, Ryan, who sat across from her, scrolling through his phone with an unreadable expression. "Morning, babe," she said casually, stretching her arms before wrapping both hands around her mug. Ryan lifted his gaze from his screen and nodded, his face calm, unreadable. "Good morning. You sleep well?" She took another sip, shrugging slightly. "Yeah." Ryan didn't answer right away. He reached for his own coffee, took a slow drink, then set the cup down with deliberate care. His fingers tapped lightly on the wooden surface of the table, a habit he had when he was deep in thought. "Just wondering?" he finally said, his voice even, almost casual. Emily tilted her head slightly, but dismissed the odd tension in his tone. If something was wrong, he would say so. He always did. She returned her attention to her phone, scrolling through her notifications, unaware of the storm brewing just inches away from her. Ryan had always trusted Emily. In their 12 years of marriage, he never had a reason not to. She was the kind of woman who kept everything in order: her schedule, their home, even her emotions. A composed, stylish woman who knew exactly what to say and when to say it. She had always guarded her phone like it held national secrets, but he never thought much of it. Everyone had their privacy, he respected that. Until last night. It had been late past midnight when he stirred awake, reaching for the glass of water on his nightstand. That's when he noticed it. Emily's phone, sitting just a few inches from her hand, unlocked. It was such a rare sight that he almost didn't believe it. His heart pounded as he reached for it, his fingers hesitating just above the screen. A single thought echoed in his mind. This is wrong. But then a notification popped up. A message preview. Brief, but damning. "Last night was incredible. Can't wait to see you again." Ryan's breath caught in his throat. His fingers tightened around the phone as he swiped up, opening the conversation that would change everything. Ryan's hands trembled slightly as he scrolled through the messages, his eyes scanning each line with a mix of disbelief and growing fury. The texts weren't vague, weren't misinterpretable. They were explicit, dripping with intimacy, full of secret meetings, shared laughter, and whispered desires. His wife, his Emily, had been living a double life right under his nose. His breathing slowed, his pulse a steady throb in his ears. He forced himself to stay quiet, to read each word without reacting, even as a sharp pain bloomed in his chest. It wasn't just the messages that sickened him. It was the way she spoke to this man, Kevin. As if he were the only person in the world who truly mattered to her. The teasing, the longing, the plans they had made to see each other again. Every stolen moment, every secret meeting, every kiss, every lie. She had said she was working late. She had said she was meeting a friend for drinks. She had said she was exhausted, too tired for intimacy. Every excuse, every little white lie, all of it had led here. To these messages, to this undeniable. Ryan felt cold, an emptiness settling in his stomach like a lead weight. His fingers clenched around the phone as he read further, his grip tightening with every new message. "I wish I could wake up next to you instead of him." That one hit the hardest. It wasn't just lust. It wasn't just some meaningless fling. Emily wanted this man. She wanted out. Ryan sat in silence for a long time, the glow of the phone screen illuminating his face in the darkness of their bedroom. Emily was beside him, sleeping soundly, completely unaware that her carefully constructed world was unraveling. He turned his head, studying her features, the peaceful rise and fall of her chest, the slight furrow of her brow, the soft parting of her lips. How many times had he looked at her like this and felt love, safety, trust? Now all he felt was rage, but rage alone wasn't enough. Confronting her now in the dead of night would be reckless. She would deny everything, twist the truth, spin excuses. No, he needed to be smarter than that. He needed to strip her of the lies, of any room for escape. He needed to expose her for exactly what she was, calmly, methodically, in a way she could never wriggle out of. So he did nothing, at least not yet. Instead, he placed the phone back where he had found it, careful not to wake her. He lay down beside her, staring at the ceiling, mind racing. He would wait until morning, until the sun was up and the scent of fresh coffee filled the kitchen. He would wait until she was comfortable, relaxed, thinking she had made it through another night with her secret intact. Then, and only then, would he strike. And when he did, it wouldn't be with shouting or accusations. He wouldn't allow her to spin her lies, to twist the story into something else. No, he would simply let her own words destroy her. The morning felt like any other. The scent of freshly brewed coffee drifted through the air, mixing with the faint aroma of toasted bread. Sunlight streamed through the kitchen window, casting golden streaks across the marble countertops. The house was quiet, peaceful, almost deceptively so. Emily hummed softly to herself as she moved around the kitchen, her phone resting face down on the table, just as she always kept it. She had no idea that last night had changed everything. No idea that the man sitting across from her wasn't the same devoted husband she had kissed goodnight. Ryan sat there, calm and composed, stirring his coffee with slow, deliberate movements. His expression was unreadable, his eyes sharp, watching, waiting. The weight of what he had discovered sat heavy in his chest, but his face revealed nothing. If Emily noticed anything off about him, she didn't show it. She poured herself a cup of coffee and took a sip, letting out a small sigh of satisfaction. Perfect. She gave him a warm smile. Morning, babe. Ryan returned her gaze, tilting his head slightly. Morning. His voice was steady, smooth. Too smooth. He took a sip of his own coffee, savoring the bitter taste on his tongue. It grounded him, kept him from letting the emotions, bubbling beneath the surface, take control. Emily sat down across from him, tucking her legs underneath herself as she lazily scrolled through the news on her laptop. She was so comfortable, so at ease. It was almost impressive how seamlessly she played the role of the loving wife. If Ryan hadn't seen the messages with his own eyes, he would never have suspected a thing. But he had. And now, all that was left was for her to face it. You sleep well? He asked casually, watching her reaction. Emily nodded, brushing a stray strand of hair behind her ear. Yeah. What? Ryan let the question hang in the air for a second longer than necessary, studying her face, waiting for any flicker of nervousness. There was none. She wasn't worried. She had no idea she was about to walk straight into her own destruction. He picked up his phone, scrolling through it idly. Just wondering, he murmured. Then, without warning, he started reading. Out loud. Last night was incredible. Can't wait to see you again. The words sliced through the morning air like a blade. Emily froze. For a moment, she didn't move, didn't blink, didn't even breathe. Her fingers tightened around the handle of her mug, knuckles turning white. The hum of the refrigerator, the distant chirping of birds outside, the ticking of the kitchen clock, all of it seemed to amplify in the silence that followed. Ryan took another sip of coffee, his expression unreadable. He didn't look at her, not yet. Instead, he scrolled further. Wish I could wake up next to you instead of him. His voice was calm, measured, almost conversational. Emily's face drained of color. She set her coffee cup down so carefully, so deliberately, as if any sudden movement might shatter the fragile reality she had constructed for herself. Her lips parted slightly, but no words came out. Ryan finally looked up, locking eyes with her. Huh, he mused, tilting his head. Who's Kevin? Emily's throat worked as she swallowed hard. Her mouth opened, then closed again, like she was struggling to find the right words. Any words that could fix this. Ryan, she started, her voice hoarse, weak. It's not, but he wasn't finished. He held up the phone, scrolling again, his expression impassive. You make me feel alive in ways he never could. He let out a soft chuckle, shaking his head. Wow, Emily. Poetic. Emily pushed back from the table, her chair scraping against the floor. Ryan pleaded. He raised a hand, silencing her effortlessly. No, he said, still eerily calm. Let's not do this thing where you stammer and pretend there's some reasonable explanation. There isn't. Her eyes filled with desperation. Just let me explain. Ryan leaned back in his chair, setting the phone down between them. Explain what, exactly? He asked, his voice sharper now. How you've been screwing another man behind my back? How you've been lying to my face every single day while sneaking off to meet him? He exhaled, shaking his head. No, I don't need your excuses, Emily. I already have everything I need. Tears welled in her eyes. "I never meant to hurt you," she whispered. Ryan scoffed. "That's the part that kills me the most." "You never meant to hurt me?" He let out a dry laugh, standing up from the table. "You did this, Emily. You let it happen. And now you want to act like it wasn't a choice?" He shook his head. "Spare me." Emily reached for the phone, as if taking it from the table would erase what had already been revealed. But Ryan was quicker. He picked it up, tossed it onto the counter. "It's too late," he said, simply. She looked at him, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Ryan, please." He held her gaze for a long moment, watching her, letting her desperation sink in. Then, without another word, he turned and walked out of the kitchen, leaving her alone with nothing but her shattered lies. Emily remained frozen in her chair long after Ryan had left the kitchen, her mind racing, her heart slamming against her ribcage. The weight of what had just happened pressed down on her chest like a boulder, making it hard to breathe. This couldn't be real. It had to be some sort of nightmare, a twisted dream where the life she had carefully constructed came crashing down in a single moment. But the evidence was undeniable. Her own words had betrayed her, spoken aloud in Ryan's calm, damning voice. She forced herself to move, gripping the edge of the table as she stood on unsteady legs. The kitchen, which had felt so warm and inviting just minutes ago, now seemed foreign, hostile. The mug of coffee she had barely touched sat abandoned, the scent now nauseating. Her eyes darted toward the counter where her phone lay face up, an inescapable reminder of her mistake. She knew she should pick it up, should check the damage. How much had he read? But she couldn't bring herself to move toward it. Instead, she turned her attention to the hallway, listening for any sign of Ryan. The house was eerily quiet. A creeping sense of dread filled her stomach. What was he doing? What was he thinking? Was he packing? Calling a lawyer? Panic clawed at her throat. She needed to find him. Emily moved quickly, her bare feet padding against the hardwood floor as she stepped into the living room. Empty. The couch, the coffee table, the framed photos on the wall, all unchanged, all mocking her with their normalcy. As if nothing had happened. But everything had happened. She turned toward the stairs, her breath shallow. Ryan had gone upstairs. She knew that much. But what was he doing? Gathering evidence? Planning his exit? She climbed the stairs, each step feeling heavier than the last. When she reached their bedroom, the door was open, the inside dimly lit by the morning sun filtering through the curtains. Ryan stood by the closet, his back to her. He wasn't packing, he wasn't throwing things, he wasn't yelling. Instead, he was still. "Ryan," she whispered, her voice breaking. Slowly he turned, his face unreadable. For a moment they just stared at each other. Emily felt the words bubbling up inside her, frantic, desperate. She had to say something. She had to fix this before it was too late. She started, but Ryan cut her off with a quiet, almost detached tone. "Save it." Her breath hitched. She hesitated, stepping forward. "I don't want to lose you." Ryan let out a breath, a slow, bitter exhale that sounded more like a laugh. He shook his head, rubbing his hand over his jaw before meeting her gaze again. "You don't want to lose me?" he repeated, as if testing the weight of the words. "Emily, you lost me the moment you sent those messages." Her throat burned. It was a mistake. Ryan's expression didn't change. No, forgetting an anniversary is a mistake. Leaving the stove on is a mistake. His jaw tightened. Cheating for God knows how long? That's not a mistake. That's a choice. Over and over again. She swallowed hard. It didn't mean anything. Ryan's eyes flashed, and for the first time his control cracked. "Then why did you do it?" His voice was low, sharp, cutting through her defenses. "Why, Emily? Was I not enough? Were you bored? Did you just need the thrill of sneaking around?" She opened her mouth, but no answer came, because what could she say? That she had been bored? That the secrecy had made her feel alive in a way she hadn't felt in years? That she had convinced herself she could have both, her husband, her lover, without ever paying the price? Ryan's silence was suffocating. Then finally he turned away. "Ryan, please," she begged, stepping forward. "We can work through this. We've been through so much together." Ryan scoffed. "We?" He turned back to her, his expression colder now. "There is no we, Emily. We were over the second you decided to take what we had and throw it in the trash. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I love you, she whispered. Ryan stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. I believe you, he said softly. Hope sparked in her chest, but it was extinguished instantly by his next words. I just don't care anymore. Emily gasped as if he had struck her. She reached for him, but he stepped back, his face hardening. I need you to leave, he said, his voice firm now. Now. Her breath caught. Ryan, pack a bag, he said simply. Go to a hotel, go to Kevin, I don't give a damn. But you're not staying here. Her legs nearly gave out beneath her. You can't just... I can, he interrupted, his voice like steel. And I am. Emily clutched at her stomach, feeling like she might be sick. Ryan had always been the calm one, the rational one, the one who forgave. But now he was looking at her like she was nothing. A stranger, a mistake, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. Emily stood there, frozen, her mind scrambling for a way out of this nightmare. Her entire world, their world, was crumbling before her eyes. And Ryan wasn't giving her a chance to stop it. Ryan, please, her voice cracked, barely above a whisper. Don't do this. Let's just talk, okay? Just talk. Ryan exhaled sharply through his nose, his patience clearly worn thin. He crossed his arms, his expression unreadable. Talk? He repeated. Talk about what, Emily? How you spent a year lying to my face? How you let another man touch you while coming home to me every night? Tell me, what exactly do you want to talk about? Emily flinched at his words. The reality of what she had done, how it sounded when spoken out loud, felt like a slap across the face. She took a shaky step forward, her hands clasped together as if she were begging for mercy. I swear, it didn't mean anything, she said desperately, her voice thick with emotion. I was stupid, reckless, but I never stopped loving you. Ryan let out a bitter laugh, shaking his head. You keep saying that like it changes anything. His eyes locked onto hers, cold and sharp. Love isn't just words, Emily. It's actions. And your actions? They told a completely different story. She felt her chest tighten. I'll fix this, she insisted. We can go to counseling, we can work through it. Please, Ryan, just give me a chance. Ryan studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, slowly, he stepped toward her. For a brief second, hope flared in her chest. Maybe he was considering it. Maybe there was still a way to undo the damage she had caused. But then he spoke. I did love you, he admitted, his voice quieter now. More than anything, I trusted you. I built a life with you, and you took that trust and burned it to the ground. He let out a slow breath, shaking his head. I don't hate you, Emily, but I also don't have anything left for you. Her stomach dropped. Ryan, don't say that. I need you to leave, he said again, his voice firm. There's nothing left to save here. Tears welled in her eyes, spilling down her cheeks. This isn't fair, she choked out. I made a mistake, but I don't deserve to just be thrown away like this. Ryan's expression hardened. You didn't make a mistake, Emily. You made a choice. Over and over again. He gestured toward the door. And now, I'm making mine. Emily's breath hitched. She looked around the room, the bedroom they had shared for years, the framed pictures on the dresser, the life they had built together. Just yesterday, she had woken up in this very bed, believing she was safe, that she was in control. Now, she was losing everything. Slowly, with trembling hands, she moved toward the closet, pulling out a small suitcase. The act felt surreal, like she was watching someone else pack, someone else be kicked out of their own home. She could feel Ryan's eyes on her, but he didn't say another word. When she finally zipped the bag shut, she turned to face him one last time. Her face was streaked with tears, her lip trembling. Is this really it? She whispered. Ryan nodded, his expression unreadable. This is it. Her throat tightened as she swallowed back a sob. She wanted to say something, anything, to make him change his mind, but deep down, she knew it was too late. With one last lingering glance, she picked up her bag and walked past him, her legs feeling like lead. She made her way down the stairs, each step heavier than the last. At the front door she hesitated. This was it, the moment she had never thought would come, the moment her carefully guarded secret had finally destroyed everything. She turned the doorknob, pausing for just a second, hoping, praying that Ryan would stop her, that he would call her back, tell her he couldn't let her go. But the only sound she heard was the quiet, steady ticking of the clock on the wall. With a deep breath, she stepped outside, closing the door behind her. And just like that, she was gone.